boa tarde. Eu hoje, dando continuidade ao ARTSCI Mais na Razão do BELO, na Ciência Sensível, eu quero dizer que Philippa, Gander, and Trubridge and Roberto Cairati, they especially represent one of the pivotal inspirational axes for this meeting today, and for the meeting in general. So I have a combination, a very happy combination of the two remarkable personalities in my family, in the groups in my family, in the crossing of neuroscience or science in general and arts. So I would like to present the group of scientists and artists. Actually, they represent a team of scientists and artists, and they are here as Philippa, Gander and Trubridge. Philippa was a zoology student. Everything began when she was a zoology student in Auckland. Probably she will tell me, no, everything began when I started to be very interested on music, stage, and arts in general. So, but she had a contact with chronobiology. She was introduced to chronobiology at this time, and if I'm wrong, please correct me. And she completed her doctorate at Auckland, so everything in this beginning was in Auckland as I understood. And she then went until her doctorate in Auckland, but the postdoc was done in Harvard Medical School with a Samuel Fulbright Fellowship. And then she started to define herself as an specialist in sleep research by the time she was in NASA, and now she is the director of the Sleep-Wake, given a big job. She's now the director of the Sleep-Wake Research Center at Massey University in New Zealand. And Trubridge is, let's say, the right arm of Philippa Gander, or the left arm of Philippa Gander. All the arms or extra arms of Philippa Gander. He is very established spatial designer. He is also a lecturer, and he has a final position at Massey University. So they've been presented a very original, I will let them to tell this history, a very original proposition of cross-linking science and arts, and to present another way of thinking, of producing, of creating knowledge. So thank you, Philippa. Thank you, Sam, for coming. It's very special to have you here.
Thank you. I'll just turn the light on so we can kind of see the images. We'll try and make ourselves visible. Okay. Thank you for the introduction, Maira. I'd also like to thank you for bringing us over to Brazil and to this ARTSCI satellite of the Neuroscience Conference. It's a real privilege to be able to share our work with new colleagues in art science. It's a real privilege to be here as well and see what you are making. I'd also like to thank your sponsors who helped this happen. The Foundation.
No, you cannot read it. It's the State Foundation for the Development of Science in Pará, and it makes part of the. This is the executional part of the research team headed by the center by the network of Brazilian neuroscience research of which I make part.
So thank you to them as well. Most of all, thank you to you for bringing us over and for your energy in making that happen. We don't need to introduce ourselves because Maira's done such a great job. So we can just introduce this talk, which is called The Waking Project, an introduction. And it's one of two talks. Tomorrow we'll talk about art-science collaboration more. We'll also talk about the Waking Incubator, which is an exhibition that you can see downstairs in the Sala Lettura from the front of the building. And we'll also hold an open forum on that day with other people who are interested in discussing with us art-science collaboration.
What we've done with this afternoon's talk is really to describe a little bit of our journey, our collaborative partnership that took us through to the Waking Incubator. So this is sort of the lead-up of how our working relationship developed and the different works that we have done together leading up to Waking. I'm going to talk a very little bit at the beginning about my scientific disciplines, and then Sam is going to talk about performance design, and particularly in relation to the sleep-wake theatre piece, which was our first collaboration, and then we'll work through the others. And having worked together on these quite different projects, we've come to some ideas, a framework for thinking about art-science collaboration, which we will introduce today, so you can think about it overnight and come back and tell us why it's wrong tomorrow. Clearly this afternoon there is not time to talk in any detail about the science that I am passionate about, the sleeping brain and chronobiology. So what I've chosen to do is to just talk about some of the things that I find very intriguing about sleep science and which I think are bridges for collaboration between arts and sciences. These are some of the odd things about sleep science that have been part of our conversation and that are still of interest to me. The first is that when you watch someone sleeping, it looks very passive. They don't do much. But we experience it ourselves as active when we dream. So we experience on the inside a totally interesting and bizarre world, while on the outside it looks like nothing's happening. And so that to an extent is a paradox. For me, there's a very strange paradox that my sleeping brain every night just gets on with it without my conscious involvement. I'm a very good sleeper, and then I spend a lot of my waking day trying to understand what my brain was doing the night before, which is a bit strange really when you think about it. Another thing which is odd about being a sleep scientist is that as soon as people know that I'm a sleep scientist, they tell me their stories. They tell me stories about all kinds of very personal things that happen to them at night. And I'm a quantitative scientist by training. I'm an experimentalist. I'm a physiologist. I'm a mathematical modeler. I'm a very quantitative thinker. But every time a person comes to tell me a story, I am faced with the limitation of my quantitative science, because my quantitative science cannot explain their personal stories. It can explain the big picture, the neurophysiology, the neuroanatomy, the chronobiology, but people's individual experiences in dreaming are beyond the scope of my quantitative science. So it's a discipline which I think teaches you respect, because it can only go so far in our understanding of the experience of dreaming. The other thing is that, of course, although sleep looks passive, we look into the sleeping brain in different ways in science. We use normally, at the moment, polysomnography, which is the electrodes attached to the face and scalp, which Sam was wearing downstairs yesterday, and you saw actually what was waking and very noisy waking signal. But we can look inside the sleeping brain more and more with various kinds of medical imaging. We start to understand a great deal more about what is going on inside the brain. And very big picture, there are two very different states of sleep. One being the rapid eye movement state where you are actively dreaming and the configuration of the brain is very different, and the other being non-dreaming sleep. So, is that visible, that writing from where you're sitting?
It's not very good.
It's not visible from here. Yeah, it should be black. This is just a little reflection on subjective versus objective experience in dreaming. So this is a painting by Dali, which he describes as, I have to read it up here, dream caused by the flight of a bee around a pomegranate, 1 second before waking. And a typical Dali. He's right about the fact that we only remember dreams when we wake from them. The other side is an objective account of how one of the leading scientists looking at dreaming and sleep cognition, Bob Stickgold, from Harvard, describes dreaming. And in his mind, when you're asleep, the main purpose is that the brain is assimilating all your experience from the previous day. You are learning and consolidating memory. And dreaming, for him, is that you become fleetingly aware of what your brain is doing anyway, offline, without your intervention. Dreaming is just you becoming aware of what the brain is doing by itself, if you like, while you're asleep. So, which of these is more valid? Which interpretation of this dream is more valid? On the one hand, we have subjective experience. On the other hand, we have somebody who has done objective experiments on other people. My contention is that both types of knowledge are equally valid, which is a bit heretical for a quantitative scientist. But I think it's an important thing to keep in mind if we want to do art science collaboration. The other part of my work and my original training, as Maira said, is in chronobiology. This is an interesting discipline. This is biology in fourth dimension. This is the biology of time. And the image here, Maira mentioned that I worked at NASA for a lot of years. This is an image of the Earth rising above the surface of the Moon, taken on the Apollo 17 mission. And the reason it's there is that the particular chronobiology that I'm interested in is the biological clock, the circadian biological clock, that controls the body and the brain so that it changes in step with the day-night cycle. And we are not aware of this, but it's a very ancient adaptation to life on our little rotating planet. All the way back to cyanobacteria have some kind of internal time-keeping system that changes the way they function in step with the day-night cycle. So this is more than 2 billion years old, this adaptation. The human body clock is in the hypothalamus, and it is sensitive to light. So it's very deep in the brain, for those of you who are not neuroscientists, but it has a separate input pathway from the eyes, and it monitors light, even through your closed eyelids, through a system that is completely separate from vision. So completely unknown to you, your body clock knows where you're up to in the day-night cycle. And this has lots of consequences, and it's also a fun concept to explore.